Everybody Hates Rand is a Wheel of Time podcast that will contain spoilers for all 14 books. So if you're anti-spoiler, pause this, read all 14 books, and come back. We'll be here, waiting.
Our title is a joke and is meant to be taken as such. In the context of this podcast, everybody refers to us and our cat. You are free to feel however you want about Rand, who is a fictional character. Don't DM us.
The world is a mess, Dark One stretching out his hand. The dragon's reborn, the fire's been fanned, but everybody hates Rand. Everybody hates Rand. Everybody hates Rand.
What's up?
Not much. What are you reading, actually, these days?
Well,
I know we're not doing this anymore.
I just finished The Beast Player. I just finished The Beast Player by, I'm afraid I don't even recall the author's name. I just read it without even looking at the cover, really.
I do that frequently.
That was quite interesting. Especially because I think it was an adaptation of manga at one point. I think it has an anime, too. We might want to look into that.
Amazing.
Like from decades ago, but still.
That's
Yeah, it's
interesting.
an old book. I looked at the copyright and it's like, it was 2004, just the translation is new.
Weird. That's wild.
Yeah,
Okay.
interesting, but that was a really cool book about, like, animals and their relationships to us and, like, what it means to be a caretaker of animals.
What?
And
Love
free
that.
will and a lot of other cool stuff.
Hell the fuck yeah.
I don't know what I'm gonna read next. Probably something from the stack of books that we just got. What are you reading?
I'm reading Arusha and the Song of Death,
Okay,
which I
also
just
read that.
started. But I just finished Dreadnought by April Daniels, and I really liked that.
Okay, yeah, I saw on the Insta that you enjoyed it.
Though I need you to read it so that we can talk about robots.
That might be what I read next.
I need somebody to talk to me about robots.
Okay.
I'm also, nobody's asking for this, but eventually I will just have to write something about the sentience of Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh! And robots.
Yeah, it's all very interesting. Robots are a topic I've, for whatever reason, just never been interested in.
Yeah.
Like, the premise is like robots.
Yeah.
Like Westworld, I was like, okay.
Yeah.
Like, it just isn't, it's not like dinosaurs, you know? If you tell me there are dinosaurs in it, I'm gonna be like, yeah. I'm fucking on that choo-choo train. Like, take me to Dinosaur Town.
Yeah. I've never been particularly interested in robots either, because I think that robot stories tend to lead into the, like, Ex Machina, if you saw that movie, which is garbage. Don't see it, where it's like, robots are this, like, weird, exotic, sexy thing that will inevitably turn on us, and it's like, well,
Yeah, that's
gross.
Westworld, too, basically.
Yeah. But, like, ever since starting Yu-Gi-Oh!, I have becoming more increasingly interested in, like, the intersections of artificial intelligence and monstrosity.
Oh, yeah.
And, like, how that rhetoric collapses on each other, or, like, not collapses, but, like, intersects.
Mm-hmm.
That's really interesting to me. And Dreadnought has some, like, interesting things about that, too. So, now I'm just thinking about robots.
Okay.
Because I have never been particularly interested in anything that's more in the realm of science fiction than fantasy. I just never got into it. I don't know why.
Yeah, when people are like space travel as opposed to like sea voyages, I'll take the sea voyage every time, you know? It's one of those weird things.
I don't know. But anyway.
Where do you fall on the science fiction versus fantasy spectrum? If you're here, I'm assuming a little towards fantasy, but who's to say?
Who's to say? Just thinking about robots. Expect at some time in the future a blog about robots.
Okay, yeah, enjoy. Hello, this is Everybody Hates Rand, your friendly neighborhood Wheel of Time podcast. I'm Emily Jushaw.
And I'm Sally Goodger, and I am, yes, sick once again, so I apologize.
You don't sound sick, though.
That's good, because I feel like my throat is being sprayed with napalm at the moment.
I'm sorry.
But I'm also starting to get a little coughy and a little snotty, so I apologize. Just like we should add to the beginning of our episode, apologies for any of Sally's weird mouth noises.
That's okay. I'm usually pretty good at getting them out, unless I continue to talk while you're coughing, which I do sometimes for some reason.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm just
It's another bout of tuberculosis.
Yep. Here we are. Sally's got TB. Did you know tuberculosis used to be incredibly fashionable?
Yeah, because it made you wasting and pretty.
Yeah, to the point that people would, like, try and make themselves look wasting and, like, bloodless and et cetera, et cetera.
Man, England was wild.
Fashion is just such a weird, especially in Western Europe. And I say that mostly because I don't know about fashion in other places. I guess there is, like, foot binding. I do know about that.
Yeah, that's fascinating.
Gnarly.
Yeah, really weird.
But, yeah, Western Europe can...
France, England... Germany.
All y'all.
I feel like France really got a little wild with the butt owies.
Yeah.
The popularity
the butt
of fistulas.
No, that is true. One of our most iconic episodes, talking about King Louis's butt owie. Oh my god, the French were insane. Have I also talked about the French king who thought he was made of glass?
What?
There was a French king who was the dad of the guy who Joan of Arc helped, you know?
Oh, yeah.
Charles, and he went crazy. Like, he had a mental illness. People think it was kind of like maybe paranoid schizophrenia, but also some other stuff. But, so he went mad and was, like, had these periods of stuff where he was like, he didn't know who his wife was or anyone. They would, like, bring his wife to him and be like, this, like, hello, she's here to help you. And he'd be like, to the butler, who is this woman?
What's this bitch?
And the butler would be like, that's your wife. And he'd be like, okay, give her what she wants so she'll go away.
And they're like, okay.
He also would just, like, run around the palace screaming and trying to get out. So their solution to that was the horror movie move of boarding up all the doors and windows.
No.
Because the French were buck wild, especially in the 1300s.
Yeah, but he thought he was made of glass?
Yeah, it was a famous delusion that he believed he was made of glass. Especially, like, so he would just, like, stay huddled up in his bed, like, no one touch me, because I'm made of glass and I could break. And he had, like, iron rods sewn into his clothes, like a little exoskeleton, so that even if someone did touch him, it, like, would protect him.
Oh my god.
Yeah, pretty wackadoodle.
That's fascinating.
It's kind of, like, beautiful, metaphorically speaking, when you think about it, because glass was a fairly new technology at the time.
That's true.
And it's actually been, like, repeated throughout history. I mean, there were other people who did think they were made of glass, particularly one guy who thought his butt was made of glass.
Hero.
Yeah, hero. But then the doctor, supposedly, I don't know how real this was, the doctor just, like, spanked him and was like, did that hurt? And the guy was like, yeah. And he was like, well, then you're made of flesh, not glass, you asshole.
The doctor was just like, wonk.
Yeah, the doctor was like, I know how to solve this problem. But you couldn't do that to the King of France, I guess, or you'd get beheaded. But it's been, like, repeated through history. Like, when cement started to be a new thing, there were cement delusions. Like, people thought they were made of cement and stuff.
That's really interesting.
And also, I don't know, he was the king. Everyone was watching him constantly. He must have felt like...
Yeah.
Like, a display.
Panopticon-y. Have I told you the story of how, like, the technology of mirrors was, like, kept really secret on the...
This is a history podcast.
This is a glass-themed episode.
Here we are. There's absolutely no glass in the chapters we read.
Yeah, Wheel of Time's relationship to glass is actually really interesting, and it's something I would, like, love to talk about at some point.
Okay, yeah, tell me your mirrors, and then I have something to add about glass.
And this is something I read on Wikipedia, so, I mean, take that with a grain of salt, though I think Wikipedia is usually pretty honest, so... But I was reading about mirrors because of who I am as a person.
Yeah, of course.
Naturally, I'm really interested in the history of glass blowing because it's always been, like, the technology of, like, hot shop glass blowing, which is what you think of when, like, the glass blowers have the rods and they're, like, blowing into... That's hot shop glass blowing. Has not really changed a whole lot in, like, the past 1,000-ish plus years. Like, they pretty much use the same tools today that they used back then. But, like, various techniques have been kept really secret. And so, like, the island of Murano, I think, off of Venice, is, like, huge in, like, the world of glass blowing. And it's all really, like, you know, heritage-based and blah, blah, blah. But anyway, it was on one of those islands around Venice where they, like, discovered the process of, like, making mirrors. And so for a long time, they kept that really secret, which is why mirrors were such a luxury item in Europe, and you, like, see them all over the palaces, while, like, the Hall of Mirrors in Versailles was, like, such a big deal. But then through some glass-blowing espionage, some Brits stole the process and began to, like, mass manufacture mirrors. in, like, factories and stuff, so they became just more commonplace. So,
Damn.
there's apparently a lot of, like, espionage and glass blowing.
I distinctly remember the first time that I realized that mirrors were, like, a technology rather than just, like, an everyday item, you know, like forks or something.
Mm-hmm.
I was reading a book where it was, like, describing something that was supposed to be kind of like, I don't know, early 19th century Britain, maybe late 18th century. But, like, they described, like, having just, like, a pane of really polished silver rather than an actual mirror. And I was like, oh, what the fuck? Anyway, back to glass. I think glass can be used aesthetically in fantasy for really cool things. One time I was reading a children's series of books called Pendragon, which I do not recommend because I believe it's terrible. But when I was 12, I was really into it.
Yeah.
And there's this one scene, like, I have this distinct memory of this thing where they're, like, wandering around, like, a ruined cathedral. And it's kind of like in the same instance that they're realizing that the place that they are is a different place just in the future. Because the premise of the book is that you can travel to all 10 worlds. And they know that there's, like, future Earth, present Earth, and past Earth. But then there's, like, this idea, one of the worlds is also another of the worlds, but in the future.
Okay.
And they're just realizing that. Anyway, someone, like one of the bad guys shoots a gun, like, up at this, like, ceiling of stained glass, and it, like, topples on one of the characters and kills them.
Damn.
Which was gnarly for me as a 13-year-old or whatever, but that's a very, like, fascinating visual.
Yeah.
It still is striking to this day. Yeah. So what I'm saying is more glass in fantasy, please.
Yeah, no, and again, Wheel of Time's relationship to glass, especially in the Fires of Heaven, where, like, a huge plot point is telescopes, when, like, the actual process of, like, making
Curved
telescope
glass.
lenses is really interesting and would require, like, a significant infrastructure of glass blowers, so...
Yeah, glass is something that doesn't get spoken about in Wheel of Time except as a matter of course.
Yeah.
Like, there's never an implication that windows are anything but glass.
Yeah.
Or anything like that, but there's also not a whole lot of... Actually, there is some, like, mirror play. There's that scene in Shadow Rising, when, you know, all the boys have their, like, weird things, and Rand's is, like, mirror stuff.
Yeah.
I think, like, he ends up shattering mirrors. Yeah. So anyway, just, like, an interesting...
Yeah, so it's just really fascinating, especially because there's, like, such an emphasis on guilds and craft. Like, when we're in Ebu Dar, that's, like, the whole thing, and, like, a huge plot point is, like, the craft of making fireworks and, like, what that means. So, and especially, like, also the emphasis on, like, clothing and what that means as a craft, and, like, when the girls have to find seamstresses to make new dresses or repair dresses or whatever. So it's just really interesting. I mean, I think I've only noticed it because I have, like, a connection to glass, having worked in a glass blowing studio. And so it's one of those things that's been, like, defamiliarized for me because I've had a relationship to it in a different setting. And so when I read Wheel of Time, I'm constantly, like, really intrigued by the relationship of glass because it's so specific in its creation and, like, delicate and expensive and weird and...
Yeah, of course.
Et cetera, et cetera. So anyway, that's your glass sidebar. Welcome to the episode proper.
Welcome to... Hope you haven't been pressing the skip button for the last 5 minutes.
We learned a lot about glass butts.
Yeah,
so.
We did. And mirrors and stuff. Espionage of mirrors.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna try and keep this straight because I accidentally read an extra chapter.
That's okay. So if we talk about that chapter, I just won't know what's going on.
We will.
What else is new?
Okay, pick up with the girls on a ship going down the river between... I can't fucking remember what this river is named. Not that it matters because rivers are never named in Wheel of Time world. It's between Kyrian and Andor, so you've kind of got, like, this Civil War wasteland on one side, and then prosperous green old England on the other side.
Whack.
Like, they're,
it's like
as
the
chapter...
honestly. During the French Revolution.
Yeah. The English are just, like, standing over there on Dover, like...
You good?
So...
What's happening over there?
Are you guys cool? There's a lot of smoke.
Have you read The Scarlet Pimpernel?
I've seen the play, though.
Oh, yeah, I forgot it was a play. I thought that book was actually really
I saw it as a high school play, so take that as a grain of salt.
I mean, I read the book when I was in high school, so take my opinion with a grain of salt, because who has good opinions when they're 16?
Sure.
But I really enjoyed it.
Okay. Yeah, I'd be interested.
It's about rescuing French aristocrats. It was some dashing English man of mystery who would rescue French
I do vaguely
nobility
recall that.
from the brutalities.
A lot of queer coding with him.
Yes.
At least the way the high school student played him. Which I was bold of you in Utah County in 2005 or whatever it was.
Deeply bold of you.
We
will stay on topic in this episode.
Yeah, so they're like literally floating past like a ruined city as they go.
Oh my god, I'm so sorry.
Right into the microphone.
No. Okay.
Silence your cell phones, please.
I'm sorry. Usually my cell phone is on silent.
Okay, I'm joking. I'm joshing with you.
You could not be joshing. You could smack me. That'd be okay.
I'm not going to smack you. That's abuse.
I mean, categorically, yes. But...
Okay. What's he doing? Just lurking by the toaster box in his little...
No, I'm going to save that for our sign-off, because that was a wild way to wake up this morning.
Okay. Well, let's keep the mystique going for a little longer.
Better stay tuned, motherfuckers.
Anyway, we're in Edween's point of view. She is kind of just standing there telling us, like, recapping what's already happened. They got on this ship. There's several asides to the fact that Edween and Nynaeve have been seriously, like, at each other's throats, like, various arguments that they've had, and one of them has won. Their clothing, for example, Edween argued that they should wear, like, silks, really fancy stuff, befitting an Aes Sedai, and Nynaeve was like, no, practicality over, beauty, like, just because we're Aes Sedai doesn't mean we can't wear wool, etc. And then the idea that all three of them are masquerading as Aes Sedai, which Nynaeve argued against, but Edween argued for, and apparently won because they all three are masquerading as Aes Sedai, albeit young ones.
Sorry, it's really interesting that, like, I kind of wish we would have seen that particular argument, because that decision of theirs to masquerade as Aes Sedai is something that impacts the three of theirs plot so heavily for the next, like, ever.
Yeah, that
basically.
was, like, the decision, and then basically none of them goes back on it. They're all pretending to be Aes Sedai for the next, until they're actually Aes Sedai.
Until they're raised, but even then, there's always people being like, well, how are we gonna punish them for pretending? And there's this, like, weird
and Edween,
threat.
Yeah, like, Elaine and Nynaeve, when they're in Saladar, are constantly like, oh, fuck, what if someone finds out that we, we're having this ruse? We'll definitely get punished. Edween chooses to tell the Ael. It's pretty interesting. She doesn't give a fuck really about the Aes Sedai themselves, but she's like, I've made friends with the Ael, and
honor and
honesty,
honor,
Zuko.
I know. So it's just like it's really interesting to not see an argument that has such far-reaching implications.
Yeah, I mean, though, that's kind of one of Wheel of Time's weird things, is that we often have, like, decisions made that happen off-screen, and then just, like, don't, like, they impact the character's arc for the rest of it, but...
Yeah, and I guess in a way that's kind of interesting. The other day I was just thinking about, this isn't any great philosophy, but, like, the way that your life is made up of these, like, seemingly really small choices that have these huge impact. And isn't that, like, a theme of Wheel of Time? Like, all the threads are significant, blah, blah, blah.
Okay.
Yeah, choices.
Anyway, Edween's kind of ruminating about her various dreams. She tells us they've been going back to Teleron Riyadh through the ring. Mostly Edween, but the others have taken a turn. And it's been different every time, so not a lot of ground broken there. But Edween tells us she's been having more of her symbolic dreams. Rand, kind of the usual. He's on a chessboard. People are trying to crush him. Perrin's got the Falcon and the Hawk thing. He jumps off a cliff and is like, I've got to learn how to fly before I reach the bottom.
What's that all about?
I think it's about Teleron Riyadh. The idea that he is, like, just diving headlong into it with no, like, idea of how dangerous it is, really. Although he tends to do that with a lot of stuff, which is an interesting character choice for him.
Considering he's our thoughtful...
Yeah, he's a very practical character. He's just like, I have to do it. And so I guess I have to figure it out on the fly.
Yeah.
It's just odd. There's ones of Matt being pursued by, like, a man who is not actually a person, she says. One where he's with an illuminator making fireworks. That one's obvious. There's stuff that she's kind of like, I don't know what this means, but, like, puppets in the hands of puppets in the hands of puppets, which is just your basic political machinations with the Forsaken also in the mix. Yeah, she has one about, like, people breaking out of a cage and then doing something. I can't remember what it
Yeah,
is.
she's got some. She's like, there's something with Perrin connected to the Yale, and there's people breaking out of the cage, and it's a lot of like classic Edgewing dream metaphors.
Yeah. She has a moment where she's talking to Elaine, and Elaine and she are just arguing about the like political nuances of Andor caring about Kyrian, because Elaine's like, oh my god, don't you just feel for the peasants? And Edgewing's like, I mean, yeah, I do, but I can't do anything about it. Yeah. So, like, here we're going. And also, like, haven't you been at war with their country for, like, 900 years?
Yeah.
And Elaine's like, I don't believe in history.
I mean, basically, that's what she says.
Elaine's like, after the Ale War, we've actually been one of their bigger, like, helps. We've been feeding them.
Yeah.
Selling stuff to them. And I'm like, okay, still, monarchy is evil. Goodbye.
So, monarchy is ass.
Yeah.
It's and this is one of the charming moments where, they talk about how the Two Rivers folk don't believe they're part of Andor.
Yeah, because Edgewing's like, you, referring to Andor, and Elaine's like, you're part of Andor. And Edgewing's like,
who? I've never heard of her.
Literally didn't know you existed until I met you, so
bye.
Think about that.
Yeah.
Anyway, in the middle of this, Edgewing's like, oh, it's a gray man, and Elaine's like, where? And Edgewing's like, no, it was one of my dreams. A gray man's chasing Matt, and we, who have already been in Matt's point of view, are like, yeah, been new.
We've been new, buddy.
We've been new, and also, like, gray men will be after Matt for, like, 100%
interesting.
of the plot.
Again,
Matt always attracts the really weird assassins.
Yeah.
The gray men, the Galam.
Yeah, we've talked about Matt's proclivity towards being almost assassinated, and it's
just
very weird.
Almost knife Matt for him to escape. Yeah, why is it, like, Perrin almost never gets assassinated.
Well, I mean...
Almost assassinated.
If only.
I know. Perrin doesn't have many close calls with that, unless it's, like, his axe turning against him, and then it's, like, symbolism.
But yeah, Matt's constantly on the verge of getting ganked.
I guess because Matt's kind of, like, just moving around, moving through the world with very little protection.
Yeah.
Perrin's almost always surrounded by, like, good guys, quote unquote.
It's got Gaul and...
Yeah, and Rand is more or less always surrounded by guards, some of whom, like, turn against him eventually, as we see with the Ashaman in that one sequence, but, you know, for the most part, Rand's bad decision-making is to blame for his near-death encounters.
Yeah.
When he's like, fuck my guards, and the maidens are like, literally, you deserve to die for this stupidity. And then there's Matt, who's just, like, strolling around, like... No guards. He at one point has an army, but like...
It's kind of different.
Yeah, he still almost gets assassinated in his tent.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Fuck.
He rolls out and he's like, Tomini's, what the fuck was that?
Tomini's, what?
Yeah, it's just Matt and his, like, 47 knives. And
Matt and his 47 knives and his 47 almost assassinations.
Yeah.
Everyone just wants to stab Matt, I guess.
I mean... Stab and stab alike.
Yep.
What is it? What's that one? Oh, I can't think of the Newton's laws of motion. I wanted to make a joke about. Oh, every action has an equal and opposite reaction.
Yeah, every time.
Knifing has an equal and opposite knifing. That wasn't very funny. That was a joke that didn't land.
It was beautiful.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't very good. It's okay. I'm just trying to bring some science into this motherfucker.
We already talked about glass innovations.
True.
So.
The science of glass is really interesting.
We can't do this again, Daniel.
But I just think glass is really interesting.
I just think it's really neat.
I just think it's really neat.
Okay.
Let me go get my giant fishbowl thing and I'll just cradle it.
Oh my god. Dreams, and then the boat crashes into what I think turns out to be like a sunken ship or something. Or basically the boat crashes and everyone's like, what the fuck? And Nynaeve comes up and talks to the captain and then is like, alright, we're disembarking. And the ladies are like, are you for shizzle? And Nynaeve's like, yes, I am for shizzle because, like, we're just going to be waiting here for another boat for God knows how long. Yeah. But we could walk and for sure get there in a couple hours.
Yeah.
Or, like, get to the next town where there will probably be a boat. Yeah. And they're like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. Although, yeah, there's still the underlying tension between Edgewing and Nynaeve. Yeah. Blah-de-blah-de-blah. There's also the idea that, like, on the Kyrianan side of the river, the next town is only 6 miles away. On the Andoran side of the river, it's, like, 13 miles away.
Yeah.
So they're like, we'll go with the unsafe side of the river. And the captain's like, I wouldn't do that if I were you. There's, like, brigands. And they're like, we don't care about brigands. spoiler, in 2 chapters, they do get captured by brigands, so just keep that on the back burner.
Our girls are dumb.
Our girls and Rand have the exact same decision-making capacities, which is they have this belief that they're invincible.
Yeah, who
It's
has
very
the brain
teenage.
cells?
It's just Matt, weirdly.
Yeah, that's
Like, Perrin,
true.
it doesn't cross his mind.
Yeah.
Matt is constantly thinking about who might want to kill him.
Matt's like,
I mean, he has the most experience
yeah,
with it, but still.
Yeah. 2 of his kids only had 2 brain cells, and Matt ended up with both of them.
Matt's also, as we know, the most fragile of, like, he has the fewest natural defenses.
Yeah, he's a small, weak boy.
He's a small, weak boy who's very good with a stick.
Brittle bones.
Brittle
probably.
Yeah, avian bones.
My avian bones!
That would be fail, actually.
Ooh.
Avian bones.
Did you get it? Because it means falcon.
Yeah.
Oh my
Birds.
god.
Okay, what?
We've gone from glass to birds now, I
Sure,
apologize. But one of the bird show birds at the aviary's name is Achilles.
What?
I know, isn't that funny? He's like our...
Is he gay?
Probably.
Nah.
He's a falcon or a hawk. He's a falcon. I think he's some type of falcon. I don't fucking know. But the marketing people wanted to, like, post about him.
Mm-hmm.
And so all of a sudden I hear someone's phone playing the Wikipedia page for Achilles. And I was like, did you motherfuckers not know who Achilles was?
They didn't know who Achilles
I don't know if
He's the twink icon.
Yeah. I was like, really?
He's literally the role model for twinks everywhere. Like,
It was just really interesting. So I didn't want to call them out because I'm trying not to be a literary douchebag.
Still.
It's very hard for me because that's sort of a cornerstone of my personality. But
It just offends me on a personal level that someone wouldn't know who Achilles is.
yeah, it just felt very strange. Like, he's like a significant part of Western culture.
Yeah.
Like, the Iliad is very important.
He was Brad Pitt in that movie.
I know.
Come
If
on.
nothing else, people should know because Brad Pitt didn't die for this.
Brad Pitt did not die for you to forget who Achilles was. Given Brad Pitt also portrayed Achilles very poorly in that.
I know. Brad Pitt was a choice.
Yeah, that was a choice. He was, like, not young enough to be Achilles. Maybe if he was, like, I don't know.
Maybe it was like early Brad Pitt who did
very
modeling.
early Brad Pitt.
Yeah. But also I was like, you have Orlando Bloom right there.
Yeah, oh
And
my
he's
God.
not playing Achilles?
Yeah, what the fuck?
I mean,
Okay.
Paris also. I mean, Orlando Bloom was a good choice for Paris. If
Yeah.
we could have just duplicated Orlando Bloom and had him play both roles.
Orlando Bloom kills Orlando Bloom at the end with an arrow to the
Okay,
heel.
it's the Iliad, but everyone is played by Orlando Bloom.
Wearing various wigs and beards.
Exactly. Patroclus, Odysseus,
Helen.
Hector, Helen.
Okay. We have to get through these chapters. So the girls get off the dang boat. Leonardo DiCaprio. Young Leo DiCaprio.
Yeah, that would have been perfect.
He would also have been a good choice. Sorry, Titanic came into
Yeah,
my head.
it'd been a good choice for Paris, too.
Yeah. Ugh. Okay.
But
Okay, we have
Leo and Romeo plus Juliet, where he's got that, like, soft lesbian energy.
I know, he really just looks like a beautiful lesbian.
Okay. Wheel of Time. Wheel of Fortune.
Yes. So they're walking along, arguing, I think.
Probably.
Yeah, blah, 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 blah. When suddenly, from the underbrush, pops Avienda.
I know.
She just, like, pops out, and Edwene, who's trigger-happy as always, is like, huh, the one source.
Yeah.
And Nynaeve's just, like, standing there. Like, it takes them a minute to realize, oh, it's an ale, and also, oh, it's a woman. And then they kind of ease up a little bit, but Edwene's like, I'm not a fool. I know women can still kill women.
Yeah.
And everyone's like, okay, Edwene, we understand. Trauma.
Yeah.
Etc. But Avienda's like, hello. Olo. I see that you are... She's like, are you wise ones? And they're like, well, we are from the White Tower, but whether we are wise is kind of up to you. And she's like, okay. Good one.
She's like, all right, slick.
She's like, all right, I'm into it.
Appreciate it.
Hey, we've got one of my buddies got stabbed. Could you maybe come and heal them? And everyone's like, what? Okay. Sudden. It's all very, like, ale stuff upon ale stuff. It's the exact same thing that happened with Perrin in, like, the last book when an ale popped out and everyone was just like, whoa, ale.
Yeah, and the other like, sup? Good day.
G'day, mate. What if all the ale had Australian accents in the show? It would kind of make sense.
Iconic, honestly.
The ale waste was just Australia.
Yeah, like the Mad Max desert.
Yeah, exactly.
And out pops Chris Hemsworth playing golf.
Quacky.
Anyway, Edwina is also like, oh wait, Avienda is actually the most beautiful woman I've ever seen in my entire life.
I know, it's a huge lesbian moment.
Yeah.
Avienda smiles and Edwina's like, damn, she's pretty.
Yeah, damn.
And everyone is like, okay, yeah, we all get it. Edwina and Avienda should have been together.
Yeah, honestly.
So much more sense.
They really do have an incredible amount of affection for one another.
Yeah, and it's just like, they're Insta friends.
Yeah.
Edwina talks about having an affinity for Avienda right off the bat, and she attributes that to Avienda looking like Rand, which, by the way, gross and creepy.
Yeah.
But she's just like, oh yeah, it's just because, like, Rand has been my childhood friend, and this gal looks like she could be related to him. And I'm like, what? I've seen people who, like, could be related to many people I know, because all white people look the same, you know? And it's like, that's not like I'm like, woo, Insta friend, you know? Yeah.
It's just one of those, like, weird, subversively racist things about the ale, where it's like, there's this hyper-fixation on their coloration and their otherness. So yeah, it's kind of weird for Edwina to be like, oh, well, she looks like my one exotic childhood friend.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just kind of weird.
If you, like, look at it through a queer lens, it makes, like, it would make sense, you know, if she didn't apply that explanation to it. If she was just like, I, like, feel, like, a strange affinity with this woman. It's like, yeah, lesbians in the wild generally feel that for each other. Like, gay people, you know, gaydar is an outdated, you know, term, but it's more or less true that, like, we have weird, like, your spidey senses tingle. Yeah,
or it's just like, because, you, like, understand how you behave, and so you can kind of see it in other people.
I don't know, it's just, like, queer recognizing queer.
Yeah.
Like recognizing like.
Yeah.
It's a thing. So anyway, I repeat, Edwina and Avienda should have ended up together. Fuck Gawain and fuck Rand.
Yeah, well, and, like, I would be interested if she talked about her affinity for Avienda because she looked like Rand. If Edwina was like, this is my type. Tall and ginger. So, anyway.
Damn, Edwina, you could have been so...
Could have been so gay.
What a failure.
But instead, you get the straightest boy on planet Earth. Gawain...
Don't make me think about Gawain.
Causes me... It was, like, Irritable Bowel Day.
He gives me ulcers.
Irritable Bowel Disease Awareness Day the other day, and I was like, oh, that's what I feel about Gawain.
Oh, yeah. Irritable bowel
IBS
syndrome.
Day. Yeah. Not to make light of irritable bowel diseases, because that shit sucks.
Yeah, they suck.
But Gawain is an irritable motherfucker.
What? Oh, so they're walking along with the ale for a little while. Bane and Chiab, like, pop out and hand Avienda her weapons back. Yeah. So clearly she, like, went into this encounter like, I'm not even gonna be armed, just to, like, show them how non-threatening I am. But Bane and Chiab introduce themselves, and it's like, here it is, all the ale we will know and come to love throughout the rest of the series. But what follows is basically just conversations between all of them where we are kind of, like, info dumped ale culture, which isn't a bad thing. Info dumps, for all that's a word with negative connotations, aren't necessarily bad.
Yeah.
Especially with, like, cultural stuff. Like, I'm fine with just, like, people explaining it to me right off the bat rather than having to stumble along figuring it out.
Well, and especially because ale culture is so confusing that even this, like, little info dump doesn't fully give me, like, I still am about to start book 8 and I'm still super confused by everything that the ale do. So, like, it doesn't bother me so much because it's still, like, you get all these pieces and you still kind of have to wade through it.
Like, this is a very rich scene for things going on in the background in terms of, like, Avienda is having a whole other conversation with Bane and Chiab while it's happening in terms of, like, they're side-eyeing her whenever they talk about the wise ones and the process of a maiden being chosen to be a wise one, and Avienda's kind of, like, back off. You know, like, the implication as we learn more about Avienda being, like, the wise ones have already tried to approach her about her power to channel. Avienda reacts when the various girls embrace Saidar.
Yeah.
Et cetera, et cetera. But we learn, we learn about the notion of first sisters and adopting each other.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the idea that you can go through a ritual to become first sisters. We learn about the notion of the maidens themselves. Elaine is like, I just know that you guys fight like the men and that you don't like men. And Bane and Chiad are like, what? We don't like men? Bane and Chiad are like,
men.
Bane and Chiad are like, we fuck constantly. Sometimes each other, but also like their explanation for first sisters is that like, and if a man comes to you, then it's with both of you,
mm-hmm.
which is a very like, is opaque the right word? Not clear way of saying that like there is some I don't want to say kinky sex, but just like not vanilla sex going on. Like, I don't know how much that's intended, but what I took away from that was like Bane and Chiad have threesomes with men rather than just one-on-one.
Good for them.
Which then becomes interesting when we get Gaul, who's like, I'm not really into threesomes, and they're like, you will be.
Yeah, which is kind of like, oh, Gaul, I don't want you forced into sexual situations that make you uncomfortable.
But again, it's so just like, on the back burner, we're never given an explanation through an ale, like, character's point of view. Like, the whole Bane, Chiad, and Gaul thing only ever comes to us through Perrin's point of view or Fail's point of view, and they're, like, as confused as the rest of us.
Yeah.
So we never get, like, a 100% of an explanation of what the nuances of this relationship
are. Yeah, if it's like, is he sleeping with both of them separately? Is he sleeping with both of them at all? Do they all sleep together?
What? And it's just
it's fine. Like, whatever.
I know, it's just like, it is another brick on the building of Robert Jordan being afraid to talk about sex unless it's straight sex between people who are, like, endgame relationships.
Yeah, there's no room for, I hate this word.
Yeah.
Promiscuity.
Yeah.
Of, like, any type.
Yeah.
And also, like, we've had this conversation before about Robert Jordan, like, skirting, and other authors who, like, skirt around overt sexuality. Like, it doesn't leave a lot of room for queering things.
Yes.
Like, even between relationships between men and women, like, when you're not talking about, like, and it's a fine line to walk between becoming, like, pornographic and just, like, sort of, like, exploring sexuality, being, like, what people are doing in relationship to each other's bodies, and, like, an exploration of what happens between Gaul and Bane and Chiad would be, like, interesting to explore polyamory versus polygamy and, like, group sex and, like, all of this stuff. Like, it could be really interesting, but we just, like, have no concept, and therefore it is othered and is kind of, like, oh, it's, like, kinky, but it's also weird, and, like, this isn't how people are supposed to function, and it's another way of othering and exoticizing the ale by putting him in this sort of, like, notion of a harem.
Yes.
Quote unquote. So.
Yeah. Let me just say, if you are a writer who is interested in writing about sex and sexuality explicitly without being pornographic, there's an easy way to do that, and it's having your characters talk to each other about their bedroom activities. I mean, it doesn't need to be sexy. People, like, talking and agreeing to things and discussing things is an important aspect of relationships and consent. So.
And not something you'll probably ever see in porn.
Yeah, exactly.
So. But you should be seeing in real life.
Anyway, that's our...
that's EHR Sex Ed 101.
PSA, public sex announcement.
Fucking talk to your partners.
And have your characters talk to their partners. Like, it's not hard.
What's the dang deal?
Yeah.
Why do we always get here?
I don't know. Why do we always end up here? Daniel, we can't keep doing this. There's also, it's odd because we're having actual explanations from the characters, and then also Elaine's weird asides to Edwene based on what she knows.
Yeah.
You know, Elaine's like, well, my understanding of the Ale War is that they don't even think of it as a war. You know, they just think of it as, like, execution. And there's actually some, like, good history here about the, lead up to the Ale War and how the Ale, like, really extended the hand of friendship to the Kyrianan and gave them all these, like, allowances and protection through the waste and, like, trading and all this stuff. And then that one dude burned a tree, and the Ale were like,
I beg your fucking pardon.
Beg your fucking pardon? What are you fucking doing? Burned our magic tree. But eventually they come to this woman who has indeed been stabbed. And Nynaeve goes about starting to, like, give her herbs and help with the process of healing her. There's a whole thing about water, wherein the Ale are clearly skittish around water, and we've just barely seen this with Gaul, so we already know the deal. Edwin, though, is like, didn't you have to cross rivers to get here? And Avienda's like, yeah, some we could cross a bridge and some we could wade across, and then there was one that was too deep, so we, like, luckily someone remembered that wood floats.
They're so charming.
I know, they're so adorable. And so they, like, made a little raft and got across the river. So and Edwin's like, that's so badass, because you're also clearly terrified of water. She's like, don't you ever swim? And they're like, swim?
Are you fucking joking?
Swim?
Girl, no.
Girl, no. Look at it. Look at it all. It's horrifying. But Nynaeve eventually manages to manufacture enough anger to...
It's actually really charming.
Yeah.
She's like, these motherfuckers walking around stabbing each other.
She's like, swords?
The fuck are you doing?
And then just heals this woman.
Yeah, which is... I really do love Nynaeve so much.
I know, Nynaeve's delightful. And then everyone's like, oh, okay, that was weird, but good
all
for
right.
you.
Cool.
That was fun. And Edwin, before they part, is like, so what are you guys even, like, fucking doing here? And Avienda's like, oh, we're all, like, coming across to see, to try and find this he who comes with the dawn. Mm-hmm. And she tells us, and I was actually one of the last people across, and I only, like, these people are only with me because they stayed behind to, like, make fun of me. So it's kind of funny and charming. Like, these are her best gal pals, and they were like, aha, Avienda, fuck you. Yeah. She was like, fine, are you coming with me or not? While I run away from my responsibilities. And they were like, yes, obviously, we love you and we have your back.
Yeah.
Anyway, girls are good.
Girl power.
But as they're leaving, Elaine's like, yeah, do you think he who comes with the dawn is
I think you're getting into the next chapter.
Am I? Fuck. When's the chapter end? They just leave?
No, I think it just kind of... I mean, I don't remember any of this conversation about he who comes with the dawn, so I think it ends before
then.
it
probably is in the next chapter then.
I mean, we can talk about it.
We've crossed that line. No, it's totally fine.
We're getting close to 45 minutes. We don't want you to feel like you need to...
Nope, we are, I think they just all part ways, basically.
I genuinely don't remember how the chapter ends.
Avienda's
like, they're still together.
Avienda's like, thanks for the help, homies. Yeah. And the girls are like, okay, we're headed out. Oh, Nynaeve's like, do you know if there's a ship at the nearest town?
Oh, yeah, that's
and
right.
Avienda's like, yes, there was when I scouted yesterday. And Nynaeve's like, okay, great, see y'all later.
Bye.
It's very, like, amiable, like, when you think of it from the Ale perspective, it's just like, their friend got stabbed, and they were really, like, panicked about that, and then suddenly they see three ladies who they're like, oh, these are Aes Sedai, because they have those rings, so we know what that means, maybe they can help us, and just, like, pop out of the bushes, and are like, hey!
Can you help?
Ladies are like, medic! Medic!
Pulls.
And the three gals are like, yes, and we will be your friends for life, also. And that is how the chapter ends, approximately there. So, we'll be back next week with kind of the roundup of that sequence, with the girls again, more Ale stuff, more brigand stuff on the wrong side of the river, and then I think we get into Matt and Co.
Thank God.
Yeah.
Survived all those Perrin chapters. At least Gaul was there.
We're getting back to Perrin in a minute, but we'll have a good
but Gaul won't
chapter
be there
to buffer us.
What's the point if Gaul's not there?
Yeah, do we have any housekeeping?
My housekeeping is that I need to extend an apology because I'm just realizing right now that I didn't update our website for the episode that came out last week, which actually came out today, the day we're recording. So it's all just the episode. I don't know if anybody even goes to our website, period. The stats do not indicate that, but if you were looking for it there, I apologize. Also, as not as promised, I mean, you guys still have to earn it, but if we do get to 5,000 downloads in May, there's a possibility that we could be playing a certain tabletop role-playing game. So, it's a possibility.
Yeah, we'll find out.
But
Deets
first you have to get us to 5,000 downloads in May. So, now it's just
when this comes out, you only have a few days.
Yeah, this will be the last episode in May, so you guys only have a few days to make everybody at your workplace download.
Tell your friends.
Other than that, just support us on Patreon if you can.
Yeah.
Because we love it.
Thanks to Glenna McKenzie for our awesome theme song. Thank you, Glenna. We are so grateful.
We love it.
Yep. Do you have a sign-off now?
Yeah, my sign-off, not very exciting, but it was a wild way to wake up this morning. Is that, like, a maintenance man came and woke me up at, like, 10:30 because I was sleeping in today. And so I, like, come into the kitchen, and our cat, Tybalt, is fully freaking out because he hates strangers. And I start making breakfast, and I look over, and Tybalt has his paw just, like, in the toaster.
Oh, my
like,
God.
up to his little giddy elbow. And I was like, okay, so this is how we're going to start the morning.
So stupid. It's literally like having a toddler.
Yeah. And I told Emily, and I was like, I don't unplug the fucking toaster.
I have to unplug everything.
So our cat doesn't
Unplug it
electrocute
all.
himself.
Robots.
So anyway, that's your sign-off / cat update.
We know you're waiting eagerly for
Perfect.
that one. Okay. Gotta end
Goodbye.
there. Bye.